So welcome everyone, yogis, yoginis. I would like to begin lying down and relaxing to just start with some breathing. So I'll open while you're lying down, so I won't talk to it with there. And what I'm going to recommend is three things: is just a small roll for your neck, a pad for your pelvis, and some height for your legs. So this is a very lovely and fairly standard restorative pose to take the pressure off sort of the major parts of the body. So careful with the blanket for the pelvis. Don't have it so there's compression in the lower back or even pressure in the pelvis. This is really to soften this area of the body. So establish that first, so you really feel the pelvis is cradled and supported. And then for the neck, not a whole lot of a roll. The back of the head can graze the floor, just be off of it a little bit. We just want to elevate the chin a little bit, feel supportive in the cervical spine. And again, not so much compression, but so this area of the body can really relax. And then you can either straighten the legs out. It's nice not to have the heels on the bolster if the legs are straight, or if you prefer, you can just put the bolster or whatever you're using, pillows, under the knees. So now we've loosened up the hips a bit. So just these three supports, and then make any little adjustments and just begin to relax, and we'll open our practice. So as you begin to settle into whatever you're feeling, we open with this understanding that that one of the functions of our yoga is this investigation of what is this body. Yes, it seems like we have an incredible preoccupation with, for good reason, with this body in terms of maintaining it, struggling with it, enjoying it. So I would just like to simply open with an invitation. And the invitation is to begin your exploration of the body with this idea that the body is only sensations. There's nothing more to it than sensations. So don't jump up into your mind, into your intellect, and try to figure this out. Go into the sensations, go into the body, go into the soma, and see if you can find anything that is not sensation. I exist. I am conscious that I exist. I am aware that I exist. I know that I exist. I rest in the joy of this knowing. I exist. I am conscious that I exist. I am aware that I exist. I know that I exist. I rest in the joy of this knowing. And now yoga. So one of the things that we're very interested in this yin approach is uh, the conscious emptying out of the lungs. So this emptying out process. So I would like you to just approach this very slowly, not so much interest or focus on the in-breath, but see if you can begin to exhale a little bit longer and slower and deeper on each exhalation. So we start this process, this highly beautiful process of emptying the lungs out. And one of the things that we're exploring is that when we are not in touch with, when we're not in tune with the exhalation, the yin breath, the emptying out process, then stale prana accumulates on the bottom part of the lungs, anywhere from 1/3 to 2/3, depending on how you're breathing. And this stale prana underlines or at least is foundational to many of our dysfunctions, physical, energetic, emotional, even spiritual. So this is the oxygen coming in and wanting the carbon dioxide to be removed. So this stale prana, this stale life force, it's not able to energize us. It's not able to not only create an oxygen carbon dioxide balance in the body, but a balance between the fullness of the inhalation and the emptiness of the exhalation. So just take some time as you relax. And again, don't make this into a technique, don't force this, but just become very curious at the length and the end of the exhalation. Don't be in a rush to cut it short and allow it to come back into the inhalation. And really, at some point, we're not even doing this anymore. At the end of this exhale, we're just receiving it. We're just allowing it to happen. So this is the nice thing about not forcing, is you're really honoring the natural flow of your breath and the natural flow of your body. And one of the reasons that we do not want to make it a technique we don't want to call it a pranayama, is because listening to the breath at this level really requires a new kind of intelligence. It's not an intelligence of the mind. It's a somatic breath awareness intelligence. So we want to start listening to the breath, really honoring this emptying out process, and also uh, being aware that when we do start to remove, exhale, let go of this stale prana, then we make room for more aliveness in the whole body, this fresh prana coming in, the stale prana leaving, and we have just a whole different kind of flow. In some ways, the exhalation is a purifying instrument, you might say. So we're making room, not only just for more breath, but to allow the lungs to function in a more healthy way. And to just feel that, to just feel the vibration of aliveness coming into our body. It's quite lovely. And so this is an open-ended invitation throughout each and every asana and in between to continually cycle back to some awareness of the exhalation and how incredibly subtle it can be, and how we really feel into this receptivity of the earth, receptivity of the new moon that is with us. So how lovely to relax and breathe and just feel our energetic aliveness between the support and the receptivity of the earth and the support and the receptivity of the new moon. And then as you're holding this invitation that your body is only sensations, these sensations have just an incredible variety of feelings, yes, of openness, of density. So take a few moments here, take a few breaths, and allow your breath to just simply be absorbed, received by any tensions that you might be feeling. And you don't have to be specific. You could be specific with this, but anything that feels like there's a tension in your body, in your heart, in your mind, in your life, in your practice, in your relationships, anything, any tension that you feel, allow the breath to simply be absorbed into it. And then just relax. Feel your neck and your shoulders relax. Feel your pelvic, sacral area relax. Feel your hips relax. And I just wanted to add on to our opening. So this essential, quintessential teaching of yoga, that I exist, I am conscious that I exist, and I rest in the joy of knowing that. So anything else, anything besides that is just stickiness. And sometimes the stickiness can be extremely uncomfortable, but sometimes the stickiness can be very sweet. It can be a sweet stickiness. And this becomes the play, the dance of life. And what yoga is suggesting is, yes, play your part, live your life, enjoy the stickiness, especially the sweet stickiness, but also make space to sit quietly in this very simple, deep and grateful place that we simply exist without all of the reverberations of the stickiness. And the more that we can do this, the more that we have this ground of being to come back to, then whatever path we believe we're on, it simply gets clearer and clearer and simpler, and the path becomes easier and easier. And this is not complicated, it is not mystical, it is not esoteric. We exist, we know that we exist, and we can be extremely joyful for that. Okay, so have a little movement here. Not much, hopefully not much compression has built up, but over time it does sort of set in. So take your time, and you can maybe bring your knees up to your chest and make sure the pelvis is good. Maybe have your head go back and forth, make sure that your neck is good. And then roll to the side. And let's come on up, please. And I want to just open the legs out just to a nice wide angle. It doesn't have to be your widest, but certainly not the hips, just way past the hips, but it doesn't have to be to your widest. And this is something, well, I haven't done it in a while. I do it on my own all the time, because just like the ankles and the toes and the feet, for those of us that use our hands all the time, we want these wrists and these fingers to enjoy the suppleness of the compression. So this is a lovely, if you're having anything in your elbows and your wrists and your fingers, this is a nice way to address it. Just be careful with this, and don't worry so much if you don't totally get it. It takes a little time. So what we're going to do with our legs open, we're going to just put your palms on the floor facing down in front of you. And then what we're going to do, keeping the palms down, is we're just going to turn the fingers towards the knees. So we're just twisting the wrists. So eventually those wrists are going to come facing front. And my right thumb is facing to the right, and my left thumb is facing off to the left. It depends on your range of motion. And for me, this may be out in front of you a little bit. For me, it really works well to tuck the fingers right under the thighs. So I get way back there. Yeah, so I have all of my fingers under the thighs, the thumbs pointing sideways, and now lean forward and just press the palms down. So this is not to use body weight. Now, we're not going to press the palms down. We could just lean all of this torso weight into the wrists. But what we're going to do, and this is where it can get a little bit tricky, but stay with it. We're going to keep the palms on the floor, so they're not going to peel away. And then you're going to bring your upper body back, and you'll feel the resistance, because the wrists don't really want to go there. So please don't force it. Be very gentle with this. And you can pendulate forward and release and come back a little bit. And we'll just hold this for a bit, not too long. Just like when we work into the ankles, this is tender stuff here. But if we do not address the tendon areas, the cartilage areas, the ligament areas, they become fragile and brittle. And we're trying to encourage them to be supple. So palms stay down, and then we're kind of pulling the shoulders back while we're keeping the palms down. So it's a sort of a tensegrity feeling here, pushing and pulling. And then when you find that sweet spot, just stay with it. And then see if you can let your awareness just drift into these sensations. And then just very systematically allow the label of fingers and thumbs and palms and wrists and elbows, just allow those labels to drop away and just explore what you're experiencing as sensation. Your body is only sensations. Okay, good. So let's release those out from wherever you have them. Just let's release them and, just wave them around a little bit, fists or whatever feels best. Yeah, so just release that. Good. Yeah. And then just let's keep sitting here and keep your chin, the bottom of your chin parallel to the floor for a moment. And what we're going to do is we're going to stretch the jaw muscle and the face muscles, all the fascia of the face. So take a nice, deep, full inhale breath, and then open the mouth as wide as you can. Almost like you're screaming, but you could scream if you want, but without the sound, and just open, 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 wide, wide, wide. You can let the air gently come out little by little by little so you can keep the face stretching as long as possible. A little bit wider. And relax. Good. Good. So we'll come back to bringing the chin parallel to the floor, and let's bring the right ear to the right shoulder. So we're just going to bring the head to the side. Try not to let the chin drop down. As a matter of fact, bring the chin just slightly up a bit. And you can just stay here in this place of stillness. If you would like some movement, you can just then gently move the chin up a little bit more and then right back to where it was. You can drop it down a little bit, move it back to that neutral place. But when you come upon a density, allow yourself to draw into it. Allow yourself to really feel it. Try to keep the shoulders relaxed. So the movement really is only to investigate these sort of threads, these pathways of tightness. And if you come upon them, relax into them. Good. So wherever you are, let's bring that chin back to a neutral place and very slowly bring the head back up to a straight spine. And let's bring the right ear to the right shoulder. So try not to let the left shoulder go with it. Yeah, and also we're really feeling like this left ear is kind of pulling up, so we're not really crunching into the neck. And then a little bit the chin up would be nice here. That would be nice, a little bit. And then your choice to either just come into a place of stillness, just sit with this. Or again, if you want the movement, let it be very, very slow and deliberate. If your breath has become short and habitual, it's okay to exhale. It's okay to empty the lungs. It's okay to continue this exploration of removing the stale prana. Oh, good, lovely. So we'll bring the chin to neutral. We'll bring the head back up to a straight spine. And then let's come forward. So wherever your legs are is fine. We'll just come forward. Use whatever supports you need to make sure it's not too much upper body weight, especially being the first forward bend here. Try not to feel like you're extending the torso out, but relaxing the shoulders and head down. So let that lower back soften, let the hips soften, and we'll just settle here for a bit. So what actually inhibits our exploration of and our connecting with the body as sensations is just the conceptual power of the mind. So the mind, it's almost so immediate that we don't understand that it's happening. So this is what your conceptual power wants to do. It wants to label and categorize and diagnose and define every little thing that you're feeling. Has no idea whether it's true or not. It just wants to superimpose, wants to dominate the experience. So once we know that, we can really just allow it to just sort of fade into the background, to not have as much control and presence over what we do. And this is when we can begin to connect with the fact, actually, it's just, we can verify this, that our awareness, it has no inherent limitations whatsoever. Our awareness has no boundaries. So this is the switch, if you will. This is the transformation from relaxing that conceptual power and just allowing the purity of our awareness to explore this somatic miracle that we live in as only sensations. And then we'll see, the tendency will be to want to, memory will come in, information will come in, all sorts of things will come in. We might even catastrophize if we think it's an injury or an old injury. Label, label, label. We're simply allowing the awareness to permeate the feelings, the residue of these sensations just the way they are.
Okay, good. So let's come up from here.
And let's do that wrist thing one more time. It's just exquisitely uncomfortable. I do know that. So what better reason than to just do it again? Yes. So again, we're going to palms to the floor, twisting so the fingers go towards the knees. The left thumb is pointing to the left, the right thumb pointing to the right. And just find a good position and, you know, just twist to your capacity. Now that you know what we're doing, you may want to back off a little bit. And then we'll just gently, first we lean forward so we can stabilize the heel of the palm, especially the whole palm, but the heel of the palm on the floor, and then keep it there. Don't let it peel back, and then bring your weight back. And then when you find that place of tension, just be with that. So I'm just going to hold this for a bit and just let you meditate on the sensations that you're feeling. Good. So before we release this, what I would like to invite you to do, and this could be done with the hips, the lumbar, a long forward bend, but try to stay with the awareness of the sensations as they release. Yeah. So it's not just, I'm glad that's over. We want to see this shift. We want to see how energy is really transforming really in our body. So let's release this very slowly, but stay with what you're feeling. And then you can allow the wrist to maybe do some circles a little bit and just notice this from the compression to the release. And this is just really your energy communicating to you, communicating to your entire body. Lovely. Good. So this is just so, just like when we do ankle things and toe things and it can be a little stiff, but again, to not address the fascia in any part of the body, ultimately it's going to become brittle and fragile. And this is not what we want. We want to keep the body flowing and fluid for as long as possible. Okay, so let's, the next thing, if you do not have a large bolster, I'm going to also show it with the pillows because it's possible to do with pillows and blankets. But I want to show it because it's a little more specific. So we're going to, if you have let's do it with the large bolster first, if you have it. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take a rolled blanket and place it across this sideways, horizontally over this big bolster. And then where we place the body and sit on it and come over will depend on your torso. So I'll explain some of the areas that we're compressing into. It's almost like we're doing the supported fish where the end of the bolster comes into the mid-spine, though we're going to use the roll to compress and hold back the lumbar area. So it's kind of pulling as we're compressing into the middle back. This is just it's a lovely pose. They're all lovely in their own way. So what we're going to do is, if you have the big bolster, we'll sit on the end of the big bolster. And like I said, you're going to have to maybe play with the amount of roll that you have. And then we do want this roll then to catch in the lower back. Yeah, so that's the first part. Okay. So I'm feet on the floor, I'm to my hands, I'm coming to my forearms. I've got this roll in my lower back, so far so good. And then I'm going to relax my body down, back of the head on the floor. The other end that we're not sitting on of the bolster is now right between a little bit low of my shoulder blades. Perfect. Then I'm going to let my legs relax out. What have I done? It's lovely. Good. So you may want to play with this a little bit, but I hit it right the first time. Of course, I've been practicing it. So we've got the lumbar compression, and what's happening now as you even relax the shoulders down towards the floor, we've got the mid-spine compression, but that roll is holding back the lumbar and it's kind of pulling on the lumbar lower thoracic vertebrae. This is good. And then we'll just relax here. Okay, so if you want to set that up, if you have bolster and blanket roll, that would be good. And now for those of you that do not have the large bolster, although they're quite easy to obtain, what we will do, I'm going to take one of these pillows off my new sofa. So I'm going to use a pillow. I'm still going to place the rolled blanket over the pillow sideways. But what I'm going to add is I'm going to add another pillow up top here, because the length of this pillow, and if you don't have a pillow this long, build it up, will not allow mid-spine compression. So same thing, I'm going to sit on my pillow. So far, so good. Feet are going to, and I'm going to put the secondary pillow on the end of my bigger pillow. I got to kind of hold that and work my way down. So again, I'm feeling this compression in the lumbar. And then as I relax my body, yes, indeed, there it is. The second pillow is pulling. Obviously, it's not going to be as direct as the bolster. The bolster has just a nice firmness to it, but the effect is similar. And then we'll relax like that. So we have basically two things happening. Good. I hope that was helpful with the pillows. A very slow and deep exploration of your entire body as sensation, as space, as awareness. continually checking in to make sure that you're allowing your body to adapt to the shape, to the asana. So if ever you find yourself wishing you weren't in this position or wondering when it's going to end, that means your body's not adapting. So it's your body. The shape is simply a suggestive template. So if you ever need to adjust or rearrange or take a rest, first and foremost, we want the body over time to adapt to the shape. And then, of course, we're mindful that we're not adjusting and rearranging to simply bypass the discomfort. So the discomfort is there intentionally. The discomfort is there to ask us to pay even deeper attention. So the body adapting to the posture is the container that we explore this dance and the quality of discomfort. And no need to cultivate, no need to go looking for stillness. The more you relax, the more you allow your breath to calm and slow, the more you allow the thoughts themselves to slow down and simply lose interest in their content, the stillness will find you. The inner quietude, the depth of equanimity will find you. And this is where we really rest in this joy of existence. It's this purity of our existence. There's no stickiness. There's no anything else attached to it. There's no conditions on it. This is at your essence. This is who you are. So let's go back out to this yin emptying process, especially now where we've also internally, we've placed some tension on the respiratory diaphragm. So this is a good thing. So especially not to force it, but feel it. So exhale, feel that you're emptying, come to that place where you're no longer really consciously doing it and you're just receiving the exhalation, and just let it very naturally flow back into the inhale. And you can take the inhale a little bit deeper as well, especially again, like I said, when we've already tightened it a bit. On the inhalation, we're going to be able to pull it down into the stomach area and some of the internal organs there. But we're more interested in the exhalation. We're more interested in emptying and purifying, and again, allowing the lungs and the diaphragm, the scapula, the ribs to be loose and open and functioning, so we can keep removing stale prana, stale life force, carbon dioxide. Okay, so let's have a little movement. So a lot going on here. Yes, it's a little tricky. And so you want the release to be very conscious. Try not to just bound out of it. Put your feet on the floor. Maybe move the knees a little bit first. Maybe the knees up to the hips, sway a little bit. Maybe shoulder to side to side. And then when you feel safe, when you feel like enough release has happened, then you can roll off of this. You could, if you'd like, to bring the knees up to the chest. It's always an option, but it's a little tricky balancing on, especially if you're on the big bolster. So just be careful of that. So just come out as safely as you can, and we'll take a rest after this. So find a restful position, just mostly so the joints can all open and the prana can move freely through all of the pathways of the body. So I just want to repeat what I was talking to Cynthia about before class, because I think it's very, very worthy of our inquiry. So I was talking about a certain kind of stress, a certain kind of anxiety, this stress that is the tension between this moment and our mental image of how this moment should be. And so this is personal. How much time do we spend flipping through the past and seeing, is it going to help improve this moment? How often do we have almost an addiction to projecting into the future and seeing how it might improve or help this moment? So how this moment actually is, and our mental image of how this moment should be. And I think one of the ways, there are many ways to explore this. So again, we don't want to adopt a technique. The challenge with adopting techniques around just allowing the present to unfold naturally is then we feel we need to practice and know and perfect this technique in order to be in the present moment. That's just silly. But energetically, I think a way to explore this, and this to me is so fascinating because it goes right down to the energy of our cells, yes? So to start to explore that there is no negative without a positive. There is no positive without a negative. And so what am I talking about? I'm talking about vibration. This is what our cells are doing. Our cells are negative and positive, and they're vibrating. And the balance of that vibration determines their and our health and our well-being. So the reason I explore this, no negative without a positive, no positive without a negative, because very often our sense of imbalance and the mental image that we have about the present moment is that it's supposed to be a certain way. Typically, it's supposed to be positive. We want positive, 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 positive. That's a lack of balance. So how do we breathe? How do we feel? How do we think? How does our heart beat? How do we allow the immediacy of the present moment to encompass and contain that energy? That there's always this balance, there's always this vibration. No positive without a negative, no negative without a positive. And if that didn't make too much sense to you, then you're definitely on the right track. So stay with that. Okay, so let's come on up and let's get a blanket to roll. So just maybe that same blanket that you had rolled up for your lower back. And I'm going to use the full height of my blanket here. So I'm just going to make a really nice roll. And what we're going to do is we're going to do a half butterfly, but with one leg supported. So what that means is I'm putting it under my left knee and really have it supported there. So just one end, so it's not sticking out. So we can take the right foot and place it like almost right, maybe up against the end of the blanket. It doesn't have to be there, but that seems to be a nice place for me to do it. So I just have an end of the blanket under the left knee. So the left knee is elevated and then the left femur is elevated. This is part of the idea. The right foot is up and in, and now we come into the forward bend. So again, nice and slowly, allow your body to adapt to the posture. Be interested in the nuance of the sensation. And slowly settle in. Use anything you need support-wise forward to adjust your weight. another way to imagery the negative and the positive is contraction and expansion. And also, I think it's very beneficial when we enter into these sort of soma body explorations at the sensory level, that we're not interested in all in good or bad. So good and bad is just a judgment, and it's separating, and it's not part of any healing process. We're more interested in the flow. We're more interested in pulsation of contraction and expansion, of negative and positive, and that expression of that as a body-wide energy. So the body as sensation, this is not static. Anything that you're feeling, the foundation of that feeling, the foundation of that sensation is this negative, positive, contraction, expansion. And so how you find that balance. So on one end would be open and free and flowing and expansive. The other end would be tight and achy, maybe a bit injured. That's the intimacy with your experience. This is what we're exploring. This is what we're gathering as information, so we can then take that information and allow it to morph into transformation.
Okay, so let's come on up from here, please. So we'll just roll up from here.
And now I would like you to take that same roll, straighten out the right leg, but before you put it down, just slide the roll so it's under both knees. So we're just going to use this as a bit of an interlude before we go to the other side. So now we have the roll under both knees, just relaxed out about hip width distance, and come back into your forward bend. So we're just kind of evening out that little bit of elevation of that left femur. Now we have them both elevated, very lovely. Down and in, relax that lumbar area. And, you know, one of the things that I mean about allowing your body to adapt to the posture is very often, and I still do this myself sometimes, is I go in too deep too quickly, and the body starts to brace or go into a slight protection mode. So if that happens, always good to withdraw a bit. You know, how you play your edge is a very, very delicate thing, and it's changing all the time. So we go in, we evaluate, feel the layers of sensation. If it feels just even a little too deep, good to withdraw, come out, relax, breathe, and then go back in. So you're really continually giving the body that we're simply using these asanas, these shapes, as a container to really honor it and explore it in a very delicate way. We always want to feel like we have our magnifying glass out and we're being very sensitive. We're almost as if we're studying like a butterfly's wings, and we want to look at some really minute, nuanced portion of it. So we go in very gently, very slowly, and just feel our way in.
Okay, so that's good. Let's come on up.
Like I said, we were just using that as an interlude. So good. So now what we can do is we can leave the right leg extended and just pull the roll all the way to the right. So it's just that one end under it. So we have room to put the left foot. And then again, we'll bring the left foot in, place it up against somewhere. It doesn't have to be at the roll under the knee. It could be more at the calf, or if it feels better to pull it in towards the inner thigh, that would be up to you. And so let's start now this descent. And again, magnifying glass out, very sensitive to the little pathways, the strands, the threads of whatever you're feeling. If it feels good, continue. If you're invited, continue. If it feels a little too deep too quickly, withdraw a bit. And then find a place to maintain it. And that is good imagery, the imagery of invitation. So really, the entirety of this hatha yoga, this physical yoga, is that it is the body that is inviting you. Again, we have a suggestive template, but as you enter into it, it is the body that's inviting you. So listen to that invitation, and that changes over time. Sometimes the invitation is, oh, let's adjust and let's go deeper, let's withdraw a little bit. It's very intuitive, and it's very intimate and personal. Mentioning the stickiness, especially the sweet stickiness earlier, reminded me of one of my favorite lines from the Upanishads. It says that the comforts and consolations of samsara are sweet in the beginning and bitter in the end. And samsara simply being our psychological and emotional patterns and behaviors that we just keep repeating. So this is the stickiness that is other than our just simply being at peace because we exist. This is the play and the dance of life, unavoidable. That's why we're here. But I was saying on Friday that when we do really start to cultivate a sense of clarity, a sense of simplicity in our lives, and really listening, listening to the vibration of the body is also listening to the vibration of the world. These vibrations are not separate. So from this quiet, still place where we can remove ourselves in a way, maybe not permanently, but this is why we have these meditations. We have this quiet time. We can start to anticipate challenges, misfortunes, dramas that we may not want to be involved with by simply feeling that relationship between my energy, my vibration, the vibration of the situation, the person, the relationship, the circumstance. So we don't get so easily drawn into these comforts and consolations of these patterns, these habits, these addictions that we think are sweet and comforting in the beginning, but as the scripture says, become bitter in the end.
Good. So let's come on up from here. And then let's remove the
blanket completely. And I just want to come into balance once again. So this time we'll just simply bring the soles of the feet together. Make sure you have a good amount of room between the heels and the groin so the hips and the knees can relax. Soften the lower back, soles of the heel together. A nice, gentle, slow coming forward. And in some ways, this is precisely why interpretation has so little value in this approach. I'm not saying no value, but it's not so necessary because interpretation is part of our mental habits. So a direct embodiment, an ability to feel what we're feeling and understand the wisdom and the intelligence of what we're feeling and let that guide us and have some space and slow down the need to always superimpose an interpretation on it. This can be just extremely valuable. And this is what I mean by being able to anticipate, let's just say, misfortunes. We can anticipate them. So before we come up, especially here where we have the compression in this frontal space, let's empty again. Let's go to this emptying process. So see if you can extend your exhalation. So on this exhalation, then the respiratory diaphragm is now moving up towards the heart. And then when you inhale, it's now pressing down into these organs that we're compressing. So this is lovely. So we're adding compression to the compression of the pose. And very, very good to compress the organs of the torso, the stomach, the digestive area, the intestines. And very good to do this internally, just do this with the breathing, with the respiratory diaphragm. It's one of its primary functions. Okay, so let's come on up and let's lie down and we'll take a rest, and we'll take a rest. So one of the great benefits that I think working deeply into the body can afford us, exploring the fabric and the nature of sensations, the soma, the interior world, is that I feel like it can allow us to really feel a sense of fullness and a sense of completion and ultimately wholeness. Because when we do this, when we really relax inwardly, there is no separation. There's no separation of our energy. There is no separation between joints and bones and heart and stomach and brain and gut. It just doesn't exist. So in addition to that, though, and this has been a very potent part of my practice in the last several years, is that it's taking the journey, whether it's a yogic journey, a meditation journey, a spiritual journey, it's all really the same thing. That the journey is more about becoming just a genuine human being, without having any kind of idealized fantasy or high ideals about how we should be or what the spiritual goal is, but just feeling that this presence of wholeness, this presence of completion, this fullness of being in the body is already there. We just sink into it. So we don't need to have a sense of false identity. We explore the self as it is, as we're experiencing it directly. And there's a joy in that. There's a groundedness in that. And then we we don't really need to contemplate this, eternal inquiry of what does it mean to be a human. We don't need to superimpose meaning on it. We just are. We are alive. And we can feel that aliveness. So the more we feel that aliveness, the more we feel that it's just, bubbling up, it's expressing, and just allowing it to being a conduit for life itself. I mean, what more could we need? And then the stickiness that we need to superimpose, the identities and the self-esteem and the self-identity and on, become less interesting. Sometimes they're functional, but it's not at our essential core. So very beautiful to be able to take this journey into the body. And like I said earlier, to allow the fundamental grounding to be the earth itself. And today I'm a little partial to the new moon, so we could also be grounded in the new moon. I find it extremely grounding. Okay, then let's come on up. Rest. And I want to come back and bend one knee at a time back. But don't worry, if you're not able to bend the knee back, I'll show some modifications. But even then, if you're still not sure, I will give an alternative to that. So don't worry. But what I would like to do, and I'm just going to sit sideways, is let's start with, I'm going to do it this way. So what we'll do is we will start with the right leg extended out. And then if you're able to bend that knee, the left knee back, we just bend it back. Yeah. So both the knees are together. Yep. And the ankle doesn't have to align with the knee. Really trust the range of motion here. So if it needs to flare out or the knee needs to open, that's perfectly fine. And I'm also starting this with some bolstering back here. So this would be, you could call it a modification. It's not really. You just may need the support. And you could put, a few pillows under this and modify it even more if you need to. Good. So what we're going to try to do then, I'm holding this bolster way into my low back, is just relax over it. Yeah. So now we have the hip, the quadricep, the knee, the ankle, and this lovely backward bend. Yeah. So this is really nice because it's a deeper backward bend with all that I just described going on. So, but you don't need to use this. If you would like to do this without the support, what it tends to do is you still get the backward bend, but for me, it tightens into the quads more and the knee more. So lower body tighter, backward bend not as pronounced. With the bolstering, it's more backward bend. Yep. And you see my knee coming up, that's the tight quad. Don't worry about that. Over time, as it relaxes, it's going to soften back down. Maybe not today, but it will. So that are some of the options for bending the knee back. If you're feeling no, then what I would invite you to do, a bit similar, is don't bend it back, but bend it in like we just did for the forward bending, where the right leg will be extended, the left foot will be on the inside of this right leg. So it's like we're doing a half butterfly forward, but we'll put a roll under the lumbar. Yeah. So now we're getting the backward bend, putting the roll horizontally side to side, relaxing over that. So now I've got pretty much the equivalent backward bend. I've got a little bit of knee bend and I can maintain this. Yeah. So this would be the alternative, not so much the modification. Yeah, if you're not able to bend the knee back. So knees, you just cannot be too careful with the knees. They're just tricky synovial joints, and you want to be crazy careful with them. So either one of those two, and we're going to hold it for a bit, so snuggle in and get comfortable. And also be aware, as I've been saying, and I always say this, playing your edge, if you start too deep and we have ankle, knee, quadricep, hip, and lumbar involved, if any of those are like there's a little bit of struggle. We don't want a little bit of struggle. We want to allow the body to adapt. So you can always either add bolstering, add more bolstering, and really feel that, playing your edges in this practice is really an art. It's not one size fits all. It's not how it should look or what I think I should be doing. It's how are we experiencing the sensations of the body moment to moment. And at any time, we can return home. We can return to our ground of being. I exist. I know that I exist. I rest in the joy of that knowing.
So let's consider coming out. So if you do have your knee bent back, it's really effective just to support yourself on your right arm and start to roll to the right. And when then you can release that left leg, it'll just open out. Yeah. If you don't have it bent back, you can just straighten the leg out. And then if you didn't have the support of the bolster, you're fine. Now you're flat on your back. If you have the support of the bolster or you're on the blanket roll, then put both feet on the floor and let's roll off of the bolster. Or you could elevate your hips if you have the roll and pull the roll out, or you could just roll off of it. But either way, let's come out of this and we'll take a brief rest here just to really let, especially that left knee and that left hip, and just let everything equalize for a bit. And then when you're ready, let's do the other side. So same thing on the other side, unless of course you were protecting one knee and the other knee can bend. That's always acceptable. We're not interested in symmetry, but we're going to keep the left leg out and either bend that right knee back, come back onto a bolster or not, remove the bolster. Again, if you're not bending the knee back, we'll simply put that right leg in a half butterfly position and use some roll. If you have a small bolster, you could use that as well, but the roll works nicely, and just come into a back compression with that knee bent. So those would be the choices. Also mentioning that the joints are tricky, I mentioned the knees are tricky. One of the reasons that we use the mobility and the suppleness of the joints as an indicator of our health is because we're understanding that this collagenous fascial system that runs throughout the whole body, it tends to congregate in the joints because the joints have this complexity that they need more layers and interwoven strands of fascia to make them up. Not only tendons and cartilage, but also these ligaments. So there's a congregation more of density of fascia in the joints. So when they start to compromise, when they start to dehydrate and energy gets blocked there, it's blocking energy from the whole body. So if we have something in the elbow and the joints start to dehydrate and we feel stiffness and achiness and limited range of motion, let's say, that means all of those strands that are out of alignment and stiffening, it's also inhibiting movement from the hand to the shoulder because it's like I said, there's a congregation there. So this is why we ease into these joints the way we do and hold it and release and compress and release, because we want the prana moving through the joints and moving through the whole body, of course, but this is where they tend to get blocked up. And this is why, you know, as we age, it's a primary complaint is that my joints are getting stiff. And it's because they haven't been addressed with compression. So for myself personally, at my advanced age now, my three indicators are my joints, my sleep, and my digestion. If those three things are good, I'm good to go. Your body is only sensations. You keep allowing yourself to come back to the sensations, coming back to what is actually alive. And these raw sensations are never good or bad. These raw sensations, this direct experience that you're sensing, this is life. This is in no way separate from life. It's the same life as the Big Bang, really, as the movement of the stars, of rain, of the way plants grow, waves in the ocean. This is what I was suggesting earlier, that when we go deeply into the body, there is this wholeness. The appearances that we are so preoccupied with are simply illusory. The nature of the cosmos, the nature of life, the nature of your body and your mind and your heart is vibration. This is what we are. It's a dance. Okay, so once again, let's emerge. So if you have the knee bent back, we want to roll away from that knee, and then when you have the space, you can open it out. If you're on some bolstering, take your time coming off. If you have that roll under the back with the knee just bent on the floor, you can remove the roll. And let's take a rest here. And I think sometimes the obvious is that we are obviously, yes, studying the body, we're studying the mind, but for it to really be yoga, to really sit in yoga, we're also studying the breath. And so this is just very different than consciously breathing when we're reminded, consciously breathing when we remember. It becomes a very delicate, nuanced study of the breath, of listening to the breath in relation to the body and in relation to the mind. So and in addition, we're not really emphasizing the body over the mind. I think it would just be disingenuous to try to invalidate the mind. It would be silly because the mind can validate itself. I think what's really part of the self-inquiry is to see how challenging it is for the mind to know its own limitations. So as we gather more and more and more information and savvy and sophistication, certainly this is a good use of the mind. We want to use the mind creatively. These conceptual powers are incredible, miraculous even. So we don't want to invalidate the mind, but at the same time, the exploration gets very subtle when we start to see that the mind itself has a limitation. And so when we start to enter into consciousness, awareness, presence, this I amness, this is a realm that cannot be named. This is that which cannot be named. And so then our inquiry takes on I don't even want to say subtle, it's just a presence, it's just aliveness. And again, you see, I'm struggling for using the language. So language is just pointing to what cannot be talked about. It's beautiful, it's very beautiful, and it's relaxing and it's freeing, because we allow the mind to serve its function, just as we allow the body to serve its function, but we realize they both have their limits. And ultimately, as we really start to awaken, we see that the body and the mind are the same thing. And the breath is just the bridge, if you will, between the two. Okay, so let's come on up, and let's come on up. So I want to give you a couple of options for this as well, because I want to open up into the hips, but your hips might not want to do this, and I understand, but your shoulders will, hopefully. So what we're going to do is we're going to, let's say we were in a bit of a child's position here, but we don't have to come into a full child with the head down. So I want to, from the child pose, or just open both knees to the side. Yeah, so this will put us in a wide knee child and allow the hips to relax between the heels. Okay, if you're with me so far, fine. Now some options here, if we don't want to do or don't have accessibility to the full twist, is you could just let both arms relax out and rest the forehead on the floor. Yeah, you could also put a bolster or some pillows forward. So this is in itself a nice shoulder opener and a nice hip opener. So now it's also a nice neck opener because my head has to dip down a little bit further. So this is one option. Another option would be to, let's say, support yourself on the right forearm and take the left hand and slip it under that right armpit and relax down onto this left shoulder. So we have a wide knee child position with an upper body twist. Yeah, so that's lovely as well. And then, like I said, the third option, if you're not wanting to put this much compression on your hips right now, then would be to just relax the legs out and lie on the belly, rest on the right forearm, place this left hand under that. So we're doing the same shoulder opener without the hip opener. And then you might want a little something for your head, but you can make yourself comfortable. So this is one option. The wide knee, left arm under the armpit twist is a second option. And a third option would be to just put the arms out or on a bolster. And then we can get the hip opener. And the nice thing about this one also is if then it gets a bit too tedious on the hips, you can walk the knees in a little bit and come into a child's pose and extend the arms out. So there's three lovely options.
I think one of the primary benefits of really awakening to, and it really needs to be self-evident. This is not something that we can take on faith or anyone's word. But when we really awaken to this idea that it is a blessing just to be, that I am, and that's enough, then it doesn't mean the stickiness goes away. It doesn't mean that life circumstances go away, but we can take them less seriously. We can have more of a lighter heart and see that everything is shifting, the negative and the positive, the contraction, the expansion. It's just this, lovely dance of movement. But we don't want to be, have it all contingent upon the circumstances. So this is a lovely thing to contemplate. It's a lovely thing to verify for oneself that it is simply a blessing to be, and this beingness, the depth of this beingness is the beauty of being alive. And then from there, we play the game. And even when the game gets a little fearful, the game gets a little challenging, we still don't have to take it too seriously, because we always can sit in this ground of being.
So whichever configuration you're in here, let's come back to neutral. So you can slip that arm out from under if you have it under, either way. And I would suggest let's come into child's pose. Unless you're flat on your belly, I wouldn't bother. I would just stay there, because you haven't been into the hips and the knees so much. But if you have been in the wide knee position, let's come into child's pose just for a moment and give the hips a bit of a rest here. And then if you are just laying flat, you can switch the arms. If you are ready to do the other side, you can open those hips back up. And this time, obviously, we'll take the right hand, put it under that left armpit, rest on that right shoulder, or any of the other variations.
Another way of saying this is that we can just stop at I am. So this is an exercise that a practice that Gurdjieff used to suggest, is just spend some time stopping at I am. We use I am, hungry, I am tired, I
I am happy. We use it all the time. We start with I am. So to come into this sense of beingness, this I amness, we can allow that to slow down to where just I am. And once we do that, we see that often we have more choice than we think and more options than we think to what we add on to that I am. So I like to come up with just with things that comfort me to add to that I am, and I'll share with you my current comforts. And this can be done first thing in the morning before you go to sleep, anytime really. And it's especially beautiful to just slow it down to be I am, and then I can add what I choose. I am fluid and supple. I am relaxed and centered. I am healthy and healing. I am youthful and lighthearted. So I would suggest let's come out of the position if you're still in it. And maybe if you had the hips open, transfer through the child's pose again. And then you can make yourself comfortable in any way. I often suggest a counter pose if that feels right, final shavasana if that feels right, or to sit up, and we can take a few moments to close our practice. Let us take this moment to sit in gratitude for the beauty and the mystery and the fragility that this gift of life really is. And namaste.